Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast explores the transition to net zero and the systems driving real change in how we move, live and power our world. Every week I sit down with the people leading that change, those offering insight, innovation and impact in many ways people don't fully see until they hear their stories. If you're ready for real conversations that inspire action and drive change, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey. And let's cut through the noise and build a better future together. On today's episode, I have got Gary Comerford from EV Musings Podcast with me.
Morning, afternoon, evening, another day gone.
Hello, fellow Yorkie.
Hi.
How you doing?
How's it going?
All right, love. You got your flat cap and your whippet with you today.
Yeah, in the background here. Fast asleep. The whippet's asleep on top of cap.
Keep it comfy then. Right.
Yeah.
On to business
let's
now.
move away from the stereotype, shall we?
Yeah, I know. But everybody just thinks we're just whippet and flat cap lovers. I do have a flat cap, but I've got a big head, so they don't always fit. Anyway, I don't mean I'm a big head. I mean I've just got a big cranium. Anyway, right. What we're going to talk about today is EV charging experiences. You've been driving an EV for how long, Gary?
6 years, nearly 7.
I've been nearly 2, so you're a lot further ahead than me, and I still don't know how you've had less bad experiences than I have in the 2 years that I've been driving. But hey, let's just move on. Do you want to tell you what? Let's just step back a second. For those of you people listening and watching who don't know you, tell us a little bit about you, because you've been on before, but tell us a bit about EV Musings, why you started it, and kind of give us a little bit of background.
Mm-hmm. Well, the first thing is, why don't you know me? I've been on here before. If you've been listening, you will know me. You know about my podcast. This is unacceptable. But having said that, I got into electric vehicles in 2018. I basically was looking for a replacement for a car I'd had for 11 years, 120,000 miles. Loved the car, but it needed a replacement. And I started looking at hybrids. And as I'm looking at hybrids, I came across this channel called Fully Charged, which is a little YouTube channel at the time. And they were talking about the electric Golf. Now, I'd driven a Golf back in the day, and I thought, electric? No, that's not going to work, is it? So you know what you do? You follow the little rabbit hole with electric cars, and then there's a whole load of reviews about them and people talking about them. And then I found this thing called the Electric Vehicle Experience Centre in Milton Keynes, where you can go up there and they'll give you a car for a couple of days. Just
is it that long?
Oh, I had mine for about 4 days, a long weekend, something like that, for like 50 quid. And I said, 50 quid a day? They went, no, 50 quid for the whole lot. We'll even give you a charge card so that you don't even have to pay for the charging.
Oh my
and I
God.
thought, that's very good. And they came out with me to a charging station, showed me how to use the charger, gave me the keys and said, come back on Tuesday or whatever. And I thought, well, that's fantastic. So I did all the running around that I normally do. Yeah. I did like my work commute, that sort of thing. I found the charger in the area there and I thought, this can work. So I then went and ordered the exact same car, which is the Kia Soul, from a lease company, turned up on the back of a low loader. It came off the back of the low loader and I sat inside it and then I thought, right, this is great. And then it started talking about, well, if you're doing AC charging, and I'm thinking, AC charging? And then I look at, well, this had a CHAdeMO connection. I'm thinking, CHAdeMO, CCS, AC, charge curves. And I'm thinking, well, if I've got all these questions, other people are going to have the same sort of questions. Yeah. So I thought, well, why not put together a little podcast? Because that was kind of the thing at the time.
Still is, love. Still is. You know?
And I'm now 250 episodes in.
Yeah. So. You have seasons as well, don't you? Whereas I kind of just go straight through.
Well, I'm one of these. If I thought I had to put one out every week for the rest of my life, I wouldn't be able to do that. But if I block it down into seasons of 20 episodes, that gives me a firm target I can aim towards. And I go, right, now I've only got another 5 to go before the end of this season. And I always finish the season with a big round table episode where I get a number of different guests on and we talk about all sorts of different topics. And I then take like a week, 6 weeks off between each season while I think about what I'm going to do on the next 20 episodes.
We've never talked about this before. Maybe I need to think about that one. So that's great. I mean, and you've got a really, really good following. Bizarrely enough, for those of you who don't know, and I said we're fellow Yorkies, we actually lived in the towns next to one another, like when we were younger, and didn't even know each other then. So Gary's from Huddersfield, well, Hunferth, it's kind of part of Huddersfield, isn't it? Yeah. Part of Kirklees, and I'm from Halifax, as you will know if you've been listening for a while. So we didn't even know. So it just is. It's a bit weird that we've kind of gone down this direction, isn't it? Gone in this direction. Mm-hmm. But look, let's get into these experiences, and I don't know whether you want to talk about some of the things that you were doing around the Christmas period, and I know we're a few months into 2025 now, aren't we? Mm-hmm. But you were kind of going around a number of chargers over Christmas, and you had the whole charging experience, like you said, since 2018. So do you want to give me some examples of the kind of the good experiences that you've had?
I will, but what I want to do beforehand is just basically link the last part of the conversation up to this, because 2018, when I first started driving electric vehicles, there was way fewer chargers around the place. And basically, for all intents and purposes, you had Ecotricity,
right,
bit of Shell, and a bit of BP Pulse, or Chargemaster, as it was then. And with a subscription, which I had with Chargemaster, I was paying 7 pence a kilowatt hour.
Okay, that's
for public
good.
Charging.
God.
Yes, 7 pence a kilowatt
for public charging.
Yeah,
shit.
I know. Oh no, sorry, I lied. 9 pence a kilowatt hour.
Oh my God,
my bad.
Just that 2p.
I know.
What are you going to do, you Northerner?
Yeah. But there were far fewer chargers around, so the majority of them that I would go to would be like a single Chargemaster 50 kilowatt charger, generally around the back of a Holiday Inn. And the reliability for the DC chargers at that point was reasonably good. You could almost guarantee that it would work, but you couldn't guarantee it would be free, because there were so few of them that if somebody else came on and sat on that for half an hour, like I used to go during my lunch hour and charge up, and 50% of the time I'd go there and there'd be somebody else on their lunch hour charging up. So I'd end up not being able to charge and have to charge after work. So that's kind of my baseline for what charging was 5, 6, 7 years ago. So if you bring it back up to date now, we've got way more charge point operators. I think there's about 70 at the last count. A lot of those are fairly localised. Dragon charging, for example. Wales, I believe. Not much outside of there. So you've now got the situation where you have more charge, way more chargers. There are a lot more fast charge, rapid and ultra rapid chargers, 100, 150 kilowatt, 350 kilowatt chargers out there. And there are way more hubs. I remember when the very first hub in the UK opened, non-Tesla, because you couldn't actually use Tesla chargers then. It was the Coachway at Milton Keynes, and it had 8 50 kilowatt chargers in it. And it was fantastic. Until all the local council vans came and sat on there for 12, 14 hours at a time, charging up on their AC chargers there. But hey-ho. So things have got a lot better over time. I mean, if you transplanted somebody today who's using an electric car back to 2018, they'd throw their arms up in despair and go, well, how on earth did this survive? Yeah. But what we've also got as a result of that is you've got a lot more people who are coming into the charging space who maybe aren't thinking about this in the way that you and I would like it to happen. And I said, we're not going to name... We're not going to name
and shame anybody during this, because that's not what we're here to do. But we are going to talk about various experiences.
So I don't want to talk about all the bad bits until a little bit later on. But what we've also got, because of people like you and podcasts like yours and some of the other ones that we work with, I think there's been a recognition from the charge point operators that they need to do better. Now, I've spoken to a lot of charge point operators, and they don't deliberately set out to do a bad job.
No. Nobody does,
Nobody
do they?
does. But there are a lot of external influences and constraints and things like that which cause
very much.
issues, etc. But I think credit where credit's due. I've done quite a lot of charging. Let me rephrase that. I do 90%, 95% of my charging at home. I tend to only do public charging if I'm up to see my parents, who, as we've already identified, are in Yorkshire. You and I are set down by the M4, so a couple of 100 miles to get up there.
Yeah.
So I have to stop and charge. Used to be twice when I had my Kia Soul with a 105-mile range.
Oh, wow.
Now I've got a car with 230-mile range in summer. It's a little bit easier. I still end up stopping because my mother doesn't have charging at home, so I like to have a little bit of a buffer there when I get there.
Yeah.
So I've got a number of key charge point operators that I always go and visit, and I know which ones I like. I know where they are on the way up. I know where they are on the way down. So I don't tend to have as many bad charging experiences, although I have had them. But looping back to what you said, over Christmas, I was working with a third party, and they wanted me to go out and evaluate a number of chargers as part of a project that they're running. And because I was up on the Yorkshire-Lancashire border, I was able to go either side of the Pennines and try a few different ones. I went into Lancashire.
It's still a thing. It's still a thing.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, isn't it, really? But hey.
Yeah. Got out alive. It was, touch and go at one point. But and the most bizarre, jumping ahead a bit, the most bizarre issue that I actually hit in, I think I went to 8 different charge point operators across 12 different locations. And the stupidest thing was the location pin for one of these was 5 feet west of where it should be.
5 feet?
5
How
feet.
bizarre is that? That is weird.
But that 5 feet included a pavement, a hedge, and a wooden fence.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Oh, I've had one of them. Yeah.
And it was on a one-way street.
Oh, God. And you were coming...
Yeah, which meant that I had to take a nice big detour to actually get back around and get into where I actually wanted to be. That was kind of bizarre.
Yeah. I'm going to add pin accuracy to my little list now. Pin accuracy.
Yes. Now, I've traced it back. That actually came back to what was the Open Charge Point database, the common one that's open to everybody.
The OCPI?
Yes.
Is it OCPI?
No.
Yeah. OCPP. I put it... You're a CPO, and I got that wrong. I apologise.
It's the basic open one that all the charge point operators use as their source. They put it on there, and it propagates out to everyone. And I've traced it back, and that initial pin is in the wrong place. It just, it's so close. It's like you can almost reach out and touch the charger. You just can't use the damn charger because you've got to go over a pavement. And
I had one like that in Oxford, actually, where it was down a residential street, and the pin was wrong. And luckily, I saw a resident who I went, "Excuse me," and she pointed me in the other direction, and it was just up the other end of the street. So it was probably similar to you, but maybe kind of a quarter of a mile away.
Now, when I'm talking about some of the chargers that I'm going to talk about today, most of them are going to be the big ultra rapid and rapid DC chargers. Although you and I do have an experience with AC chargers.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Oh, I've forgotten about that.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that when we come a little bit later on, I think. But an example of a really good charger experience that I had, I was coming back over Christmas. I was coming down the M1, and I got off at Luton. And I went to the Tesla supercharger at Luton, which is I think it's a 12-stall one. And I got there, and every single one of the stalls was occupied.
Right.
And I thought, I'm going to have to wait. So I pulled into a little parking space just opposite where the row of chargers was. There's McDonald's at one end. So I thought, shall I go in? And just as I'm thinking, shall I go in? The guy in front of me pulled out.
Okay.
So I reversed in.
Perfect
and I hooked
timing.
up and I hit the button. And despite the fact that every single one of these chargers was being used, it ramped up immediately to the full 205 kilowatt charge speed. I was driving a Polestar 2 at the moment that the good people at Polestar had lent me over Christmas.
Nice car.
Yeah, it's a very nice car. So it worked. It worked first time. It worked quickly. And it worked to the full charge speed, straight up. And I was literally waiting for 30 seconds.
Wow.
You know, which was fantastic. And, you know, I would take that any day of the week.
Yes.
Without any problem. Yeah. Did you have a good example?
I do have good examples. So actually, as people know, who've been listening and watching, my son James, went to university in Exeter last September. So he's in year 1 of doing biology down there. And there's a charging hub in Bridgewater. So we've got a smaller range than you have. So this was September, taking him in, you know, a whole... Oh God, our car was so chocked, it was just untrue. And we've been to another charger recently, before that, probably about a year before that, we've been to another CPO at a... well, I won't say where it is, actually, because that'll give it away. Anyway, it wasn't a particularly good experience. So we found this one in Bridgewater. It's a little bit off the beat. It was maybe a mile off the M5, but the screen was clear. The charging experience was smooth. It was just. It actually prompted you to kind of. Well, you could tell for a start off. Let's start off here. You could tell for a start off which was which connector. So it was really easy to understand. The screen was low as well. This is the one near to you. This is one there, and it was all touch screen. So I just felt that was really good, really clear. Step 1 is this. Step 2 is that. Step 3 is da-da. You know, we didn't have a problem at all. And that. Oh my God! I mean, you said about the Polestar. And the kind of speed that you got, or the you know, kind of from the Tesla, we only get a maximum of 44 kilowatts through our wind knife. We got 46. I don't know how we got 46 from that one. I've never had anything like it, and it was just a really lovely charging experience. You know, there wasn't anybody else at the charger. You know, it was only a small hub. The only thing was I had to, sorry everyone, too much information here, but I had to use the men's loo because there wasn't a ladies' loo at the time. It was brand new toilet block, and there were 2 sets of toilets all together. You went through the same door, and I think what they'd done was they'd just not put women's on there, and it was all just under men's, and I was right, okay, that men's is down there. I'm just, yeah. When you got to go, I'm sorry. But that overall... That was a really good experience, for sure.
Now, let me ask you a question, because I had a similar one, and I suspect it was the same charge point operator that we talked about. I was on my way up to my parents, same car, Polestar, pulled in, brand new, I think 5, 6 chargers there, double connectors. Thank you very much. Nice big screen. Plugged in, very, very easy, started without any problem, no payment issues, the whole lot. Only gave me 55, 60 kilowatts charge speed. And this is after I've been driving for 2.5 hours.
Okay.
And to me, that kind of counts as a good charging experience because it all worked flawlessly.
Yeah, but lower
it's soured by the fact that this charger, in theory, could have got 300 kilowatts. If it's split down the middle, 150 kilowatts, fair enough. I wasn't getting anywhere near that, and the car could have accepted it. And that's an issue that I have, and I know a lot of people have that same sort of issue. And there's a myriad of reasons why that actually had... big word of the day there, myriad. Thank you. Myriad of reasons why that might happen. But it becomes annoying when... It happens on that particular charger, and yet I take the same car under the same circumstances to a charger that is completely packed, and I get 205 kilowatts.
I know. I mean, God, if it is the same CPO, and so with the same hardware, I don't understand why we got more. So we got a good experience, an excellent experience, and you got kind of, power wise, that's kind of weird, isn't it? Were there many people in the hub, or were you?
Nope, I was the only
No?
one there. I was the only. Now it was a little bit cool. So whether the actual hardware, the power packs within the charger itself were cool, or whether that was having an impact, I don't know.
Because they've got kind of like little power units to the side. I don't know whether you've seen. Yeah, there's sort of power units to the side, aren't there? And I know that they can add additional support, additional power or to boost it in there. But yeah, I mean, but actually, this one. So the one that we're talking about, that was like I say, the best experience I've ever had. And there's a brilliant CPO, or sorry, there's some brilliant hardware that me and you always talk about, and we only ever get 35 kilowatts out of it.
Interesting.
And so that's kind of weird, and somebody thinks that it might be the car, but I don't know. I need to get. There's a little dongle. So for those of you, it's coming out very soon. But there's Dougie Blair, and he talks about this dongle that you can put into your car that'll tell you whether a problem with the charger. Sorry, if you're charging and you're getting less speed, for example, this is maybe what you could have worked out, Gary, as well, if you had it. You can put it into the same slot as you'd put telematics under your dash, and it will actually give you an idea of whether the problem is from your car or from the charger. So I don't know. We don't know that answer for that specific manufacturer.
And it does bring up a good point, which is hopefully something we'll come on and talk about shortly, but we shouldn't have to go and buy a third-party dongle to find that out. Yeah? At the end of the day, and, I'm going to name names here. If you use the Kempower units...
It is that, yeah.
It will tell you this charge is being limited by the car, or
so
this charge is being limited by the charger. So the charger could be wanting to give you more, but the car's going, no, battery's too cold, or I'm too high in the charge curve, or something like that. Or it could be that the car's going, give me more, and the charger's going, nope, got no more to give you. But that's displayed on the screen, and it should be widespread across all of the chargers. Anybody should be able to go and look at that and understand, I'm expecting 205 kilowatts, but I'm only getting 60 kilowatts. Why? It's issue with the car, it's issue with the charger.
I need to have a look at the screen again. Bizarrely enough, also around the Bridgewater area, coming back, not necessarily on the same visit, because we've obviously been to see James quite a few times. On a different visit, we actually visited another CPO with a Kempower charger, and I kid you not, we were on it and I was getting about 35 kilowatts, which, I mean, for us, it's kind of okay. We can sit and have our sarnies and, get enough to get down to Exeter and what have you. It was levelling at 35, and I have no idea how or what or why. All of a sudden, it went up to 40 something for about 10 seconds and then back down again. So I probably did need to have a look at the screen to have, to see, because, I will have a look next time. But that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It needs to be obvious, doesn't it, really?
It does. And if I look at my notes from my trip over the festive period, I used chargers from 8 different charge point operators and a couple of Tesla units. Very few of those units actually provided the maximum power my vehicle was capable of.
Yeah.
Although one of those was, have you ever heard of a company called EVV, EVYVE?
Yes.
Yeah. They had a 50 kilowatt charger in a pub somewhere. So I plugged into that one straight up to, in fact, I think I actually got 51 kilowatts out of that, because that was giving the maximum power it could. And my vehicle at that point, the Polestar, could have taken a lot higher charging speed than that. So the one common thing that I found, even with a really, really good charging experience on many of the ones that I visited over Christmas, they weren't giving me anywhere near what I really would have liked to have come out of the charger at that point. And as I said, because very few of them were Kempowers, it was difficult to understand what was the inhibiting factor.
Yeah. But like you said, we shouldn't have to just be kind of going to page 21 of a dongle guide, you know, to try and work this stuff out. It needs to be obvious, doesn't it? Because and especially with new adopters coming along now, you know, like we say, ultra rapid, never been as fast in my life. Is it going to be? Are we going to get up to that? We need to just simplify it. And the words like CHAdeMO, I know CHAdeMO and CCS. Yes, it's like I suppose it's like a European plug and a GB plug. You know, if you have to go abroad, you've got to understand the difference. But I don't know the names of them. I just know what they look like. So I know what a CHAdeMO looks like, and I know what a CCS looks like. But the people now, you know, coming into this as new EV drivers have got to do all this research theoretically, because half the time they're not told when they get the car, you know, and that's where some of the negativity from people who've jumped into an EV comes from, don't you think? Because, you know, we're all of this language is very different to them. But I know we're supposed to be talking about charging experiences, but, you know, that was my little aside. What do you reckon on that one, though?
It's difficult because I always come back to the statistic, which is, you know, something like 10,000 people a year put diesel in a petrol car or petrol in a diesel car. So the fact that there are two different quote-unquote standards for wet fuel causes an issue. But I've never put the wrong electricity in my
No, it's
car.
very true.
And I've had CHAdeMO and CCS. And the main reason is because you can't use a CHAdeMO on a CCS vehicle and you can't use CCS on a CHAdeMO vehicle. So while somebody may go in and go, oh, this has got a nice blue handle on it, I'll try it. Oh, no, it doesn't fit. I'll go back and I'll use the one with the black handle on it. So it would be nice for them to understand that you don't really, you know, unless you've got a Leaf or ENV 200 or an early Kia Soul, you probably want to stay away from the blue handled one and leave it for those who do need it. And if you've got anything else, there's a really, really high probability that you'll be able to use the CCS. You may not understand why, you may not understand what the difference is,
You'll
but
see it.
One fits and one doesn't.
Yeah. And I suppose the first time I met you was when we were doing the London to Brighton, and you did the London to Brighton to Paris EV rally, didn't you?
Yes.
And that was the first time that me and my husband had taken an EV for a period of time. I'd kind of been test driving them in the run up to that. And I remember going to a specific CPO on the way back. And we didn't really know what we were doing then, you know, but you kind of go, especially because you've kind of, you open up the charging port, and you're there. There's a top and a bottom, isn't there? You know, and like on our wind knife, we've kind of got a little top and a bottom. You know, you just flick them out, and we were kind of looking at the thing, going, I'm assuming that must go in there. Do you know? And I'd seen enough at that stage to understand, but it's quite. Once you've done it a couple of times, it's easy, isn't it?
If you know, I mean, I have a distinct memory of, again, won't name the charge point operator, but it was one of those that had both. It was a single unit, CHAdeMO, CCS, and an AC adapter, an AC connector at the side. But you could use either CHAdeMO or CCS, but you could also use the AC at the same time. And I came up to charge, and there was, I think it was an Audi e-tron that was plugged in to the AC charger.
Okay.
So I went in, I was still in the Kia Soul at this time, plugged in on the CHAdeMO, and I sat there for a few minutes doing my email and that. And the e-tron owner came up and got in, and I just said, look, thanks a lot for not using the CCS unit. And he went, what? I said, you were on the AC unit. It meant I could. He said, what are you talking about?
Oh, no.
And it turned out that he'd gone up and he'd opened the connector. Nobody had told him that you have to put that little flap down at the bottom.
Oh,
so he tried all three connectors, and the only one that worked was the AC.
That one.
So I unplugged him, and I flipped the little flap down underneath. He kind of went, oh, what? You have to use the rapid charge stuff? It's not going to take me 8 hours to charge? Yep, there you go.
But who should have told him that, Gary? It shouldn't have had to be you, should it?
It shouldn't. It should have been the dealer. But of course, as with most people, myself included, I've never visited a dealer. I've done all mine online. The car comes on the back of a low loader. The guy who drives the low loader has no idea about these kind of things, which is one of the reasons I set up the podcast, so I could, pass this information out. Because the irony is that instance of having to educate somebody on, the bung at the bottom, whether it's a rubber bung or a little flap, that's not the only time I've done that. I've done that more times than I think people should actually have to be taught about that. It's scary.
But it's also so it's, to me, it's that information needs to be made available not just at the dealership, but I think in some ways, and I know we've not talked about what good looks like properly here, but in some ways there needs to be something, if possible, at the the charge point or in the hub, or something that it's visual and actually going, this is what you're going to see. If you're a new EV driver, this is what you're going to see. It's that you see your CHAdeMO, which is less likely because that's there's less now, isn't there, in some ways, but or your CCS or your and actually, and if you want to do an ultra rapid, if you've got this much time, then you can use this. If you want to use it's time as well as kind of that information. Go on, you're smiling. He's smiling at me. He's got a counterpoint here, I'm sure.
I might give you a counterpoint, yes.
We always talk about this, don't we? He's not playing devil's advocate today. He's got a counterpoint.
I've just given you a counterpoint. Name me an electric vehicle that doesn't have a screen inside it.
Yeah, true.
Why can the screen, when you pull up to a charger, why can it not say, right, this is the charger, the connector you should be using, and don't forget to remove the little bung.
Pull the flap down.
It should be there.
I know.
Push it to the vehicle. It should not necessarily be the charge point operator that does that.
No, I know, and I get you. But I just think if you're going to do a double whammy, because some people just don't take any notice of these things. You're right. But I just put it in multiple...
Doesn't matter where it is if they're not going to pay take any
notice.
No, I
know, but if you put it in multiple places, then at some point that it's going to go in, isn't it? And I'm not trying to say that people are stupid. I'm really not. I'm just saying, when you're in a rush, if we're talking about people who are putting petrol in a diesel or diesel in a petrol or whatever, we are going to have people who will do silly things. It's like there's some stats from the AA, aren't there, about, but they're very similar to the number of people who let fuel go so far that they run out of fuel, wet fuel, and the same number of people, same percentage of people that would run out of charge.
It's about 2%, I think, of all the calls that the AA receive.
So we know that we're going to have people who are going to do silly things. It's about mitigating it in as many places as we can. Because we do want some really good charging experiences. What are the good charging experiences you had then?
Well, I did, as you say, I did the London, Brighton, Paris rally, and this year we went London, Brighton, Paris, Geneva.
Yes.
And again, this was one of those where we didn't necessarily do an amount of planning. The rally organisers had said there were a certain number of points where we'd like to meet up just to get everybody together for photos and things like that. And they happen to have chargers there. So if you want to charge, then you can.
That's good. Yeah.
But we did pull into one that was a couple of hours south of Paris. Now, the thing to say, in my experience, all the roadside, their equivalent, the motorway service areas in Paris, all have charging hubs, and I'm saying hubs, 6, 7, 8, 9, big, rapid, very well made chargers with canopies and that sort of thing. And we pulled into one that was run, ironically, by a fossil fuel company, Total Energies. We all plugged in. It was nice Alpatronic hardware. We all flashed the payment cards. They all worked first time, except for the one at the end, which had been working, pulled out, and a French guy in his BMW pulled in, and he looked at the charger, and he looked at his car, and he looked at his charger, and then he came across to us, knowing we were all English, and he said in French, "This is the first time I've ever charged this car. I have no idea what I'm doing."
He said it in French to you?
He said it in French to me,
bless
yes.
his heart. Okay.
And I went, oui, monsieur, pas de problème. And I, because I've got a little bit of French. So I plugged it back in and I said, where's your payment card? So he gave me the BMW card that had come with his vehicle, slapped it on the alpatronic reader, and it went, no. So I went, oh. So we unplugged, plugged back in, tried it again, it went, no. I said, can I try a third time? He said, yeah. So we unplugged it, plugged it back in, slapped it again, and he went, yeah, okay, you can do it this time.
Oh, weird.
And he's kind of, yeah, I knew the charger worked because literally one of our group had just unplugged, so it wasn't a charger issue. I've got to assume that they'd given him a card that was working. If not, I would have asked him for a contactless card. But the fact that it was his first time charging,
oh, can you imagine?
and it took 3 goes to get it starting, and I'm hearing a lot of that. I've experienced 1 or 2 of those myself. I'm not going to say where they are, but they all tend to be with the same charge point operator.
And if it's if it's who you talk about, have they been around for a while?
They're one of the
older
successors
ones.
to one of the earlier
Okay.
the early ones. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. If it's who I think you're talking, so you've named a couple already, and I'm not going to name.
I've named
this.
a couple of good ones though, haven't I? I haven't named any bad ones.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, we've managed. If we're talking about one of them that lots of people kind of moan about, and it's not the fossil fuel version one, my husband's managed to get that working 3 times. 3 times. Ooh. I know, but using Octopus Electroverse, I have to say, let's just talk about this, because we've talked about good experiences, and sometimes it's down to that RFID card or whatever it is you're tapping with, process. Isn't it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But you have to remember that payment process, we know sometimes they're combined RFID and contactless payment.
But not enough in my experience.
No, I know. But then you've got the ones that you've got a separate RFID, and it is confusing for people. But I have had less problems because I think maybe, right, I'm going to put it this way. You know how I said to you at the beginning, how have you had less bad experiences? I think it's what you said right at the beginning, that you charge 95% at home. Mm-hmm. So we've got less range on our car. When I think about maybe a week after we'd got it, I found out that I was going to have to drive to Coventry and back, and I've told you this anyway, you personally before, and I knew that I wouldn't have enough miles to get up there and back. So because I'm driving around quite a lot, I'm having to use chargers more regularly, and now obviously that James has gone down to Exeter, it's 165 miles down there from Reading. So we are going to be charging more. We are going to be going to places and having different experiences. But Octopus Electroverse, I've got to say, we had a fantastic experience with it driving in Brittany last year. Same as you, kind of going abroad. It was really interesting because thinking, oh my God, what's it going to be like? How's it going to work? And I think there was only one bad experience that we had, and it wasn't a bad experience of anything other than the fact that the guy, and it was the company that you've just mentioned earlier. I'm not going to say them again, but they actually did have somebody manning. No, stop it! I can see you're going to say it. Stop it. There was a guy actually manning that hub. He was sat on his phone. He was doom scrolling. He wasn't really taking any notice of anybody. And we tried to use contactless initially because I'd started feeling unwell. So we needed to stop quite quickly. And of course I was driving. So that's the other thing. And I was like, right, let's come off here. And we're just going to, and luckily there was a decent sized charging hub with probably about 8 or 10 chargers on there. Brilliant. Perfect. Ultra rapids. Perfect. But we needed to get to 100% because we knew we'd actually we'd come off the motorway earlier than we'd intended. So because it's quite a long way from where we were, I can't remember the name of the place, but like I say, we needed to have that charge to just to get to the ferry. But what the guy didn't tell us, he didn't say about what we would have to pay if we went over 45 minutes. He didn't say we would get fees per minute. So we came up with more fees because we'd stayed on for longer than 45 minutes. But I was not feeling very well. I didn't look at I didn't see the signs, and I don't know whether they were in French and English or whatever. But anyway, so the what we paid was probably more than what the charging was itself. So that's the only bad experience, because initially we had to use contactless, couldn't get that to work. Then he got us to download the app. Oh my good God. And then we found out we could have used Electroverse afterwards, because I'd not had very much connectivity on my phone. Mm-hmm. So the charging experience itself was a bit of a pain. Once we started the charge, it was great. I had to go and kind of not quite lie down, but I was feeling really unwell. So, there was kind of all that. But overall, that wasn't a bad experience using Electroverse all the way through the holiday.
The whole area of roaming is one where I love it. I tend to use most of my charging via a roaming service of some sort. The problem that I have is that you can't have just one. There is not one roaming service that covers all the charge points that I particularly use. And that's a problem. So you mentioned Electroverse, absolutely fine. You can't use that on BP Pulse. You can't use that on GridServe.
No, true. You don't get GridServe out in Brittany anywhere, though.
No. But and again, there are others out there, and they all do similar things. Some are app-based, some are RFID-based, some are both. And if they suit the majority of the chargers that you use, or the charge point operators that you use, then that's an absolutely perfect solution, because you don't have to mess around with contactless. You don't have to mess around with pre-authorizations. You don't have to worry about, well, am I flagging this in front of the RFID reader, or am I putting this in front of the contactless terminal? Are they the same thing? Are they two different things? I mean, there's one charge point operator, and I really rate them really, really well, apart from one thing, which is all their stuff's up here, right in the eye line, RFID reader, but the contactless payment is down near your knees. There. And it's kind of, well, why am I going to look down there?
Oh, it depends. I suppose it depends, Gary, if they've had to retrofit it. If they retrofitted it, then maybe that's the only place they could put it. But actually, yeah, sometimes you just kind of think, flipping heck, come on.
Yeah. So roaming it's a godsend. And I know that Sebastian Fleischhacker is probably listening in on this. He's a big fan of roaming. It's far more prevalent on the European mainland. The Public Charge Point Regulations 2023 that came out, or were put into law last year, was it? Last November?
Year before. 20, yeah.
Yeah, but
we're in 25 now. That was 23. Yeah.
But there was a year after. They only came into law last year, didn't they?
So there were certain categories came in, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then roaming will come in November 2025 under the regs.
The whole thing is, A, you've got to have a roaming service, which is fine, but B, every unit over 8 kilowatts has to have contactless. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I know Sebastian's going to throw his hands up and go, well, why? Why? Just get a good roaming service and you don't need contactless. And from a European point of view, I totally understand that. And from me personally, I would love to be able to use one roaming service everywhere, because I don't want 6, 7, 8 different pre-authorizations on there at any given point. Whereas with a roaming service, I don't have that. But I understand why a lot of the UK population go, well, I don't want to have 387 apps on my phone. And I don't want to have to sign up for a roaming service or whatever. I'd rather just take out my iPhone or Android or whatever and just tap that on, because that's what happens when I pay for my Costa coffee.
Yeah.
I don't need a separate app for that. Although ironically, Costa do have an app, so does Starbucks. But,
that's the point, though, isn't it?
I know.
Is that for your points?
It is. It is. But it's seemed to be a convenience aspect. And in reality, it's not. If it doesn't work as well as something like a roaming service.
what I do like, or what I liked, and I don't know whether you actually get these triggers when you're over here for some reason. I can't remember, but I liked the fact that when we were in Brittany, that if you chose a charger and you were looking at the app, for example, on it kind of, you could see which charger was which, etc., etc. It would tell you whether you had to initiate it with the RFID card or whether you could initiate it through the app. And I liked that. It was, it's very, very clear. I know what you're saying about it would be great to have one place that aggregates them all together, because it makes it so much easier, doesn't it? But actually, just having that, oh, it's one or the other, because at least it's kind of telling you. I don't want to be using apps all the time, because I can't always, even in the UK, I've had situations where I've not had connectivity, because that's the other thing, isn't it? It's like, if you haven't got that connectivity, it's less easy for you to be able to use an app in the first place, because you can't get the signal to do anything with it.
I was in conversation with someone recently who's sold her electric car and gone back to petrol. The reason she gave was because her insurance tripled, which I don't know whether that's true or not. That's fair enough. But as a snarky little comment at the end, she said, "And now I can remove the 397 apps that I had to allow the charging." To which I said to her, "Why have you got 397 apps? Why don't you use a roaming app from the CPO?" And her reply was, "What's a roaming app and what's a CPO?"
Oh dear.
But she did have a point, because you go up to any charge point and they will go, "Oh, download our app, download our app, download our app." And pretty soon you've got an app for every one of them. And 90% of them you don't need. In fact, 100% of them you don't need.
Oh, you want to see? I probably have got about 30 apps on my phone.
I've got 3.
I don't use them. Have you?
I've got 3 for specific charge points. And the reason I've got that is because on some of them, you and we'll name GridServe, for example. At least when they launched their app, they had a discount on the price, but you had to use the app to start and stop the charge to get the discount. So there is a use for having apps, but there isn't a need to have the app.
No.
You're in their ecosystem if you use the app. So, if you're sort of narrowing it down to 2 or 3, like I've done, and occasionally I'll use one versus the other for various reasons, but it means that I don't have to use contactless, and I can use roaming if I want.
Exactly, and I would just keep it. Now you're getting me thinking. Now I probably will delete a load of apps. Do you know what? At the time, I think it was because, like that lady you're talking about, I thought I needed that many apps. And actually part of it was, oh my God, I don't want to be caught out. So I'm going to download all the apps of the charge point operators that I think I'm going to visit.
Yeah.
Until they introduced, kind of contactless. But yeah, I mean, I suppose even now like I say, we're using Electroverse more. Depends on where I am to whether I can or whatever we're doing.
Well, it does loop back to the conversation, or the part of the conversation we had a few minutes ago, where you and I had a not particularly pleasurable experience with a rather large charge point operator at one of their sites, because it was a site that had lots and lots and lots of AC chargers. Yeah. And of course, under the charge point regulations 2023, if they're below 8 kilowatts,
they don't have to have
contactless. You can have contactless if you want, but you don't have to. And this particular site didn't. So you had to use the app to initiate the charge. And of course, we went in and we parked up at one of these units, and I looked at the unit and I looked at the app, and I found the app, and it found the charger on the app, and it went, "No, this one's not working." And neither is the one next to it or the one next to it. So we moved to the other side of the car park, and I found that particular charger, and I put it on. And then, of course, what's your password?
Yeah.
Reset the password. Or you need you need to have money on the account. So I then got to load the damn thing up. And it was like 20 odd minutes before we
It was
managed
a
to get
long
this.
time,
And
wasn't
even
it?
then, as I recall, we couldn't actually get that particular charger to initiate. It just hung for a communications
Yeah,
type
we got the
of
spinning wheel of
issue.
doom,
The
didn't we?
spinning wheel of doom, and it's situations like that. I can fully understand why they do it. But if you're going to mandate that somebody has to use your app, at least put communication out there so that it can actually talk to the app and to the charger without getting the spinning wheel of doom.
I know. And a lot of it is because you've got that I don't even know whether we're in a bad signal area either, but it's that kind of 90, I think it's about 90 or 120 seconds max that you get before that. And I didn't know that until I was interviewing EnigmaNet recently. You've got that period of time where if it's going backwards and forwards and it doesn't actually get that signal through, that's all you get, isn't it? You kind of just get it going round and round and round. But a driver doesn't know that.
No. And my
We
question
don't
is
know.
that particular location, not 10 yards from where we were, has a big Starbucks with Wi-Fi on board. Mm-hmm. So if you can get Wi-Fi there, surely you can get Wi-Fi or a signal out to the rest of the chargers that were in that particular car park and remove this issue of not being able to communicate.
It depends if those chargers, if they were only, because they were only 7 kilowatts, weren't they?
Ooh,
I
they
think
might,
they
have
were
done,
quite
they
low.
might have done 11 kilowatts at some point, but
Well,
yeah.
if it was my car, it would have only got like 7 anyway out of it. But it depends if they have actually upgraded it to kind of, because some of them, I know this, not necessarily with that brand, but I know some have actually stuck with like 3G.
Mm-hmm.
So if they've been in that, I can't remember how long ago that hub was put in for those chargers. But if they've not upgraded to make sure that they've got roaming SIMs in, then maybe that's what's the problem with the connectivity, or I don't know. It could be something else. But yeah, that was a bit of an interesting day, wasn't it? Or that just trying to get that charge initiated. So yeah, let's because we were supposed to be let's look at what we see is needed as part of a good charging experience.
I have thoughts.
I know you do. Go for it.
Can I start?
You can.
To me, there are 10 things that the perfect charging location has. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to go through them one at once and chime in wherever you want. And if you've got examples of where this has or hasn't happened, then I think it's a good discussion to have. First of all, it has to be well signposted. You've got to be able to get there. You've got to be able to identify where it is. You know as well as I do that every wet fuel station that you go to has this huge totem outside that tells you this is BP, this is Shell, this is Jet, this is Texaco, and it usually has the price on there as well.
Yep.
How many of those do you know for chargers? Well, if you take
Not
away
many.
the grid, if you take away the GridServe electric, their electric
forecourt, and a bit of Fastned.
a bit of Fastned, and I was at the BP Pulse that opened on Cromwell Road, which was an old petrol station that had been upgraded.
Yeah,
to
I used
that
to
had
go there.
That had a totem, but none of them have the price on it.
Yeah, hello. Today's price might be finger in the air.
Yeah, but you might think, well, yeah, if they're a big hub, then it doesn't matter, because you can see the hubs there, which is a valid point. But there are still new installs going in out of the way places where there's no signposting at all. I don't know whether you know Molly Miller's Lane in Wokingham. There's a SureGuard self-storage there. It's an industrial estate. It's nowhere near any major trunk routes. And there is a new charger that they've just put in there.
Is there? Oh my goodness.
At the SureGuard self-storage.
Just the one, Mrs. Wembley, or
Just the one, Mr. Wembley, and no signposts or anything about it. So that's the first thing. Now, the next thing I would like to see is good communication about the charger status. Now, I want to know before I get there, how many chargers are there, how many are working as opposed to out of order, and how many of those that are working are actually available.
yes.
Yeah? Now, I know
bit
it
like
may
you-
not be 100% accurate as of that second. It might be a few minutes delayed, and I'm okay with that. But you look at an app like ZapMap, and it has that on there. But a lot of the data that is provided by the charge point operators, it's a little bit inaccurate. So, for example,
It's not dead.
the example I talked to you earlier about where there was the e-tron that was plugged in on the AC charger, that would have shown on an availability thing as having 2 chargers available. It would have had the
Yes.
CCS charger available and the CHAdeMO charger available.
Yes.
So in theory, if I didn't know, I would go, right, I've got a CHAdeMO car, I can plug in there. Somebody with a CCS can use it as well. But of course you can't, because this is one of those units where you can have an AC charger and one of either of the DC chargers. And I've seen, because I checked a couple of days ago, there is a charger near me that is under that situation. And it said the CCS charger is in use, but there's still a CHAdeMO available. And I know for a fact that it isn't, because you can't use both of them at the same time.
No.
So you have to have good communication about charger status. Thirdly, I want the charger sites to be well designed. I want canopies.
Not canapes.
Not
the edible
canapes.
ones. No, not darling.
Or
No.
cans of peas. No. But I have literally had conversation with senior charge point people who've said to me, well, you're sitting in your car for most of the time while you're charging. Why do you need a canopy? And I'm thinking, yeah, but if it's the middle of the night and it's dark and it's wet and I'm trying to load money onto my app because you've decided that that's how it's going to be and we don't have the communication from the discussion that we just had, and I'm having to work this in with my poor eyesight with the glasses and it's tipping it down, and I'm thinking, I could really do with a canopy here.
Yeah, yeah. And why would you have a petrol station that has a canopy for just fueling your car that takes 5 minutes and not have it for a charging experience? You know, Teresa Swift, who works with us, it took her 45 minutes to initiate a charge in the rain while she was on the phone to customer support trying to get that sorted. Me and my husband, I'm not saying it would have made a difference with this situation. We're stood in another place not far away from where you've been recently, and we were absolutely freezing. It was about -2, and we had to ring customer support and couldn't get them to get the charger to work. So yeah, I'm not saying because it was cold, it wasn't raining, but you do need cover.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when I get there, I want proper payment methods that don't lock you in. We've talked about this already. I want roaming service. I want it to be ubiquitous and varied. I want to be able to use ZapPay, Electroverse, Power, Shell Recharge, PlugShare, All-Star. I want to be able to use any of those on all of the chargers. And as we've already identified, there isn't one of them that you can do it on all of the charge point operators. Again, I spoke with a major CPO recently, and I said to them, you don't have a roaming service yet. And he said, don't we? And I said, no, and you need it for the Public Charge Point Regulation 2023. And he went, oh, yeah. And I saw him wander off, and he got in a huddle with another couple of executives who were there. And he came back 30 seconds later and he said, no, we're with three roaming services. And he named 3 roaming services that I had never heard of, that weren't widespread in the UK. One of which was I believe was just fleet-based. So it wouldn't apply to me anyway. And from their point of view, they've complied with the regulations and they're there with a number of roaming services. But I don't use any of them. And I'm pretty sure that most of the people who use roaming regularly don't use any of those. So are they really complying with the regulations?
Well, if you leave regulations and I always say this as well, if you leave regulations so they're open to interpretation, then that's what you get.
Yes.
You get an interpretation of whatever anybody wants, and they'll go, well, that's kind of what it meant, didn't it? We're doing. That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. We've done
Interpretation
it.
that benefits the company, not the user.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know all this lot costs money. You know, I get it. I know it costs money, but actually, if you want utilisation, then just
there you go.
Move the EV driver a little bit more up the pecking order.
Yep.
Go on, next.
Brings me nicely onto, and again, we talked about this briefly, I want contactless that works first time, every time. Now, in 40 years of driving a fossil fuel powered car, I've never had a contactless payment refused at a petrol station.
Yeah, me neither.
No, let me rephrase that. I've had them where they've said you haven't got sufficient funds and we're not going to allow you to charge. That's a different thing. They've always gone through, Now, I can pay for using a credit card. I can pay for parking under a shelter in the corner of a car park. I can go in and pay for my coffee anywhere. There's any number of things that I can pay using a contactless card, and it's not an issue. Why is it always an issue when I'm trying to get a charger to work?
I don't know whether there's any issue. Well, back office maybe, or banking systems, because I know banking have got a lot. There's the banking systems themselves have there's an issue with regards to the pre-auth, isn't there? Because there isn't a kind of a full agreement with the banking sector about pre-authorizations, and that's why they're all a little bit all over the place.
Which brings us nicely on to pre-authorizations.
Cool, go for it.
A couple of things on this. I want pre-authorizations that don't take hundreds out of your bank account. If I'm at a charger, I'm trying to getting it working, and it pre-authorizes £40, and the charger doesn't start, I don't want it to take another £40 from the same credit card on the same charger the next time I try. It should say, oh, I've already got that pre-authorization.
Yeah. Intelligent systems.
If I use a different credit card, yes. If I go to a different charger, yes. But if I use the same card on the same charger, I should be able to try it as many times as possible.
Yeah.
With just using the initial pre-authorization that went.
Exactly. Because they're holding those funds. Just one set of funds, please.
There we go.
Not three. I had that the first time I was charging, Gary. It took £135 worth of pre-auth. And I got to that one and I was like, no way. I'm just going to sod that for a game of soldiers.
And there are two other things I'd want to see here. And a shout out to Sarah Sloman, who's a big fan of this. Sliding pre-authorizations.
Yes.
So it's pre-authorising £10. I put £9 worth of charge in. It then pre-authorises another £10. When I get to £19, it pre-authorises another £10.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And another one, a shout out to Ben McDonald from Nodum on this. And this is something that he picked up. He's just come back from the south of France in a Renault, was it the Megane or the Scenic that had been loaned?
I can't remember.
And he said he had problems with pre-authorisations. But what he'd like to be able to do is to go up and say, I'm going to put 45 kilowatt hours of energy in here. Take the money for that 45 kilowatt hours off my card now.
Yeah.
And when I get to 45 kilowatt hours, stop the charge.
Yes. Yeah.
You could do it on petrol pumps.
Absolutely.
You could do it 30 years ago when I used to work at a petrol station. God, 40 years ago when I used to work at a petrol station.
Don't say it.
You used to be able to go in and say, I want £10. You'd hit the button. You'd, grip the thing like, I don't know what, it'd get to £10. Boom.
And then it switch off. Exactly. Absolutely. It's not difficult.
It's not difficult.
Theoretically. All right. Okay. We're just assuming it's not difficult. And we're talking about lots and lots of different hardware manufacturers as well.
Yes.
Lots of different back office systems, lots of payment systems. So please, if you're listening and watching and you're a CPO, don't think that we don't know that some of this stuff is out of your hands. This is just about what we see as good experiences.
Yep. And the ultimate one, let me just check, is it the ultimate one? The ultimate one on payments themselves, plug and charge.
Yeah.
Yes, not all cars can do it at the moment. Yes, not all devices can use it, not all chargers itself. Yes, not all charge point operators have implemented it. But if every charge point operator that could do it actually switched it on, it would make life much simpler for those people who have the right cars and can do it. And it would then act as sort of building momentum so that they would then start to make it work for other vehicles or for other pieces of hardware or for other charge point operators. Question for you. Do you know how many UK charge point operators have actually implemented plug and charge? I'll give you a clue. It's more than 0 and it's fewer than 70.
One? No, well, I suppose I know that there's Tesla. So Tesla's got plug and charge.
But only for Tesla vehicles.
Yes.
If you don't have a Tesla car, you can't. Yeah.
And I know that Fastned got no, but it's not plug and charge, is it?
It's auto charge, completely different thing.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it just Tesla then?
No.
Okay.
It's two. It's Ionity
That was it. Yeah.
and the Porsche charging network.
Okay.
Yeah, because Porsche, despite the fact that Porsche are part of Ionity, they've also set up their own charging network.
Okay.
And you plug and charge on that. There are others that are thinking about it, but nobody's actually implemented. So I've got 3 more to go. So number 8, I want simple.
Don't get.
I would like simple, ubiquitous, another big word of the day, receipts management. Now, I can go to any petrol station and there are 256. No, let me rephrase that. I can go to any petrol station and I can get a receipt every time I charge. Doesn't matter which petrol station it is. Doesn't matter whether it's manned or unmanned, whether I use the machine or whether I go into the kiosk. I can always get a receipt. But there are 256 different ways of getting a receipt if you're using a charger. I might have to scan a QR code on one of them. I might have to go into a website, enter the last 4 digits of my credit card and the date of the charge to get a receipt. I might have to go into an app for another charge point operator and get a receipt through that. I might have to light some incense and pray to Voltaire, the god of public charging, for one at another charge point. There should be a simple way of doing it.
I hadn't thought about that one. I'll have to try that one next time.
What, lighting a stick of incense?
Yeah.
It works every time, but it's a bit of a hassle.
I know, and it might be a bit smelly, depending on your choice of incense.
There you go.
Gosh. No, I get you.
Yeah. So, number 9. And again, we have talked about this already. Proper displays that let people know what the charge speed they're getting is and why they're getting it. Is it charger limited? Is it car limited? Is it because the battery temperature is too slow? Is it the power pack temperature within the charger?
Just give people an indication, for goodness sake, please.
There you go.
It's called education. That's all it needs. Knowledge transfer. If you don't like that word, use knowledge transfer. It is just teaching people stuff.
Absolutely.
Literally.
And finally, I would like well-located and well-managed sites with good amenities and facilities. And as an example, again, going back to the London, Brighton, Paris, Geneva thing, I was stopped at a Tesla supercharger in France last year, and I am not exaggerating in any way, shape or form. It was a corner of a field that they put concrete down and a dumpster.
No.
And that is all there was there.
That sounds like the one in Wokingham.
Well, it's not far off, except the one in Wokingham has gravel.
Yeah, but it gets flooded as well, doesn't it? So, you
But
just
you
have to
try
hop
using that if you've got a wheelchair.
Well, oh my God, don't even go there, yeah. Shocking.
There are a number of 50 kilowatt chargers on the outskirts of London that are literally just stuck on the pavement edge outside people's houses.
Them.
Yeah? No facilities.
Non-circular.
Nothing, for a 50 kilowatt charge. Now, if you're using AC chargers, lamppost chargers, and you're leaving your car there overnight, that's fair enough. But a 50 kilowatt charger, which in theory is a rapid charger, what are you going to do? You've got to make sure that the space is free. You've got to plug in and then,
And then something. And
then
is that outside somebody's house? Because
Yes.
they're going to want to park there. And whose choice was that?
Exactly. Now, going back to my little festive thing, there's a brand new charger that's opened, a brand new hub that's opened in Bradford. Lovely hub. It has canopies. It's got lots of rapid chargers there. But it's in a triangle. There are roads on 3 sides.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's literally right in the middle of that. One of the roads on this side is a dual carriageway with no crossing point.
Oh my God.
There are no facilities at the charger itself. The nearest coffee shop is 100 yards down the dual carriageway, which, as I already said, has no crossing point. There's no toilets, nothing. So you're stuck in the middle of a 3-way road triangle.
Oh my God. Is there a Portaloo?
No.
Sorry. Oh my God. Oh, that's not really well thought out, is it? Really? Somehow. Is that your 10 now?
That's my 10 now. Yeah.
We've gone past an hour, and I've still not said my 10. I don't
Have
know.
you got
I've
10
got
as well?
10. Well, I'm going to do mine very quickly, okay? Because
You think?
oh, stop it! It's so cheeky. Number one, we've talked about it. Connectivity. Let me have connectivity when I'm plugging in. It might not be that I need to actually use an app, but I might actually want to use my phone or something like that while I'm there, and give me connectivity. This is the things I need. Same as you. I'm not going to say canapes, darling. I'd like a canopy. I want rain cover. I need to make sure that, that I actually, if I have to go out and usual inclement weather conditions are as they usually are, and I'm going to get absolutely drenched, give me some rain cover, please. And I don't mean just hand out brollies while you're there. Facilities. I don't want chargers to be at the back of a car park. We've got to, in order for us to push adoption, we need to make chargers more noticeable. Actually having it in the back of a car park with no lights, for a start off, it's flipping dangerous, and people will not rock up to your chargers if it's like that. But actually, you're not providing that level of, you're not highlighting the fact that the chargers are there in the first place. Payment. I want easy payments, have the stuff that you were talking about with pre-auths and things like that. That's the other reason why I use Octopus Electroverse. A, gives me a discount. B, I don't get pre-auths. Thank you very much. Clear instructions. Oh, please, just give me some clear instructions, like I said about the one down in Bridgewater. Make it simple. My brain works. It doesn't work through looking through piles of text. If I'm in a rush or it's peeing it down, like we've said, I just want to be able to plug, initiate and pay in whatever order that is. And actually, do you know what? Tell me what the flipping order is. Either make sure it's, this isn't to do with the CPO, but, I want to either see it in the car or see it on the charger. I'd rather see it at the charger, to be honest. That's just me. Pin accuracy, as you've said, got to make sure we actually get those charge point pins right. If you've got 100 or 500 chargers out there, please just check your pin accuracy, because there's so many times then they're not accurate. And actually, do you know what I'd like to see? If a charger's broken down, if it's got a fault, make the colour come up on the screen as red. Actually give me a visual trigger. It's the red, amber, green. It's the rag status. Red, amber, green. I know you don't want to be shouting that something's out, and you're going to say, if you've got 3 connectors, you can't always do it. But actually, at least give me some kind of indicator that if it's not said on Zap Map or whatever, that charger's broken down, just give me an indicator so that I don't spend hours trying to initiate a charge and it's not there.
If I might
counterpoint, here we go. He's got a counterpoint.
A lot of the times when a charger's out of order, it's been powered off. Now, if it's powered off, they're not going to be able to give you a red, amber, green anyway. So is it better to say, well, if the screen's blank, it's out of order?
But like you said, we've had these conversations before, and like I said, look, I did power through them, and that's all of them. To be honest, well, there is one I was going to talk about, but that's separate. If you've got three connectors and you've got one connector or 2 connectors that aren't working, then how do you manage that? Because you're not going to power the machine down. No,
and you can't manage that with a rag indicator either, can you?
No, and but actually, I am going to mention very quickly why I said to you before we started recording: proactive maintenance, fault detection. Fault detection before people have to ring, because people won't always ring. I didn't even think about it. I had an issue about 3-4 weeks ago now, and I was just in a rush. I just wanted to get home. I just wanted to charge, and I didn't realise that the Uber driver in the bay next to me had already tried on this. Now, if somebody's tried to charge, if you've got evidence in your back office system that there's been 2, 3, 4, 4 EV drivers that have tried to charge, then there's something wrong with that, even if you've not had that phone call, because if you're leaving it for that phone call with that EV driver, it's too late. That's all I will say on that one. But I just think there's that level of being proactive rather than reactive, so any other thoughts?
No. Amazing.
I think there's a, we've powered through a heck of a lot of stuff there.
We did, didn't we?
I mean, and Gary knows that when we were talking about this conversation, I was going off on lots of neurospicy tangents, wasn't I? We haven't even talked about the mild hybrid cheese car, and
Ugh.
I won't even. That's another story for another day, people.
We'll come back and chat about that at another podcast, eh?
That we could probably make 3 podcasts out of the stuff we were talking about, couldn't we? Really, to be honest. But look, Gary, like I say, hopefully there will be, we've given our thoughts on all of this. It's not just the good, the bad that we've talked about. We've tried to kind of be constructive in what we've come up with. There's so many charges in the ground at the moment, and the numbers are just increasing, and a lot of the CPOs are doing a brilliant job, but we just need to kind of, like I say, about moving the EV driver up the pecking order a little bit. I know we know you've all got investment and you've got utilisation needed, but you can only utilise if people are actually using your chargers. So just up it a little bit. Customer experience is so important. Don't just say it and have it as a tick box exercise. Push it up the ranks, because once you keep us happy, that's me and him, 2 Northerners. Once you keep us happy, then actually the rest will come. It'll just start. People will start rolling because then there's no reason for people to bitch or criticise, is there? I've sworn a couple of times today. Jax, if you're listening, I'm sorry about that, and that's Pam Hanlon's son. My apologies.
I was going to say something then, but I won't. No, I think that I had a really, really valid point there, but when you started talking about Jax, it just kind of went straight out of my head. So.
Sorry.
No, it's gone.
Has it gone? Oh, well, look, don't worry about it. I can always add it in the show notes. What Gary said was going to say was.
Yes, I've got it.
You remembered?
Yeah.
Good.
I think you and I are aware of this. A lot of what we talked about is the ideal situation. We've also said that a lot of the things that we're talking about, there are probably, possibly, maybe technical reasons why that's not as easy as we think it is. But
yeah,
I know from discussions with charge point, there are certain charge point operators who believe that they are doing really, really well in the market because they've got a lot of customers, because they're dishing out a lot of power on a daily basis. And, I've spoken to senior people at these charge point operators, and they do have a little bit of an attitude of, well, no, we must be doing it right because we're very popular. We must be doing it right because we're one of the top X number of things on a ZapMap survey. Yeah. And I think that's a very slippery slope. There are a lot of charge point operators out there who are being used because they are there, not because they are the best. And you've got to ask yourself, and they've got to ask themselves, if they went through an exercise with a company like yours to look at, here's the customer experience, here's the points where you could improve, how much better could they be if they took that on board?
Oh, Gary, honestly, totally agree. And yeah, you know the work that Full Circle does, and actually they can be better. They've just got to recognise that it's not about admitting failure or anything like that. It's just about striving to be better, because if you don't, there's going to be a competitor that will come along and they'll swamp you, and you'll be all of a sudden you'll be there, and your utilisation rates will have dropped massively.
Yes.
Because competition is exactly that. And you've just got to keep striving. And actually, people didn't know when I first started this podcast what continuous improvement is. And yeah, I know it's one of those phrases that's a bit as my son would call it. It is about striving for improvement, though. That's a 19-year-old. They say nah. It's about striving for improvement. And, if you aren't trying to get better all the time, then you are going to just fall behind, like you said. So I'm so pleased that you've actually added that in, Gary. I really am. Thank you.
Welcome.
And do you know what? On that note, I think I'm just going to finish there, because I think that's the best place to finish. And it's been brilliant talking to you. You only put a couple of counterpoints to me as well, and didn't even say devil's advocate once. It was me that did, doesn't it, really?
Well, on that topic, I've only got one word. Meh.
So, to round up, thank you everybody for listening and watching. Thank you to Gary for joining me.
My pleasure.
We have had him on here a few times now, and it's been brilliant. Do check out EV Musings Podcast. You have got 200 odd episodes out there, and he gets some really, really good guests on. Obviously I do, because he's on this, but but yeah, please, I always say to you all as well, please try and like, subscribe, comment on all of our posts that go out on LinkedIn and the various social media platforms, because we need to actually increase this, kind of get the word out there, stop those negative Nellies that are out there. Yeah. But look, Gary, thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And to everybody else, thank you for listening and watching. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're a charge point operator, local authority or stakeholder in EV charging, I'd love to talk to you about our Charge Point Evolution framework. It's designed to help you create a seamless EV driver journey, boost utilisation and maximise your return on investment. Alternatively, if you know someone who'd be a great podcast guest or might be interested in sponsoring an episode, you can email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks again for watching.